moon meant to remember.
Moon, like the
Moon. It's
Breshit.
because the Breshit is going to land on Erev Shabbos Hagadol.
Oh my God. Who's gonna land?
The Breshit. That's
So I just, for the fun and fun of it, and the incredible messages here, I just want to give a quick recap. We're going to learn about Parshat Mitzorah, because Mitzorah is very, very tied into the story of Purim. And I'm going to do a prelude about some of the events that are going on in this momentous Chodesh. HaChodesh Hazeh Rosh Chodashim. This is our time. Klal Yisrael is connected to this Chodesh of Nissan, and to the moon, and to many other things, and we're going to go through all that. But you should know, first of all, that Mitzorah is referenced in the story of the Haggadah and of Yetzias Mitzrayim. How? Who was the Mitzorah in the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim? Paro. There are two references to Mitzorah. One, Paro became a Mitzorah, became leprous, right? This week's parsha, we read about the person we'll see, who's afflicted with this. It's a spiritual disease. It's not a physical disease. It's a spiritual disease.
It's not really leprosy.
No, it's not leprosy at all, because leprosy is basically a dark discoloration, and these are white, mostly white discolorations. And as Mefarshim point out, Malv and others, it has absolutely no connection to physical health. These are not issues of physical health, and he proves, the Klei Yakar proves that by saying that the final two in the parsha that's discussed, in this double parsha, one from last week, one for this week, is the nega on what? On clothing
And on the wall.
and on the walls of the house, which obviously is not a human health issue. I mean, you might think it might be, but he says no, it has nothing to do. Because it's nothing to do with the body. Right, the body and its how shall I say, its humors. You know, it used to be the idea that in ancient Greece they said, well, body's made up of 4 essential elements: blood and white bile and black bile and what being phlegm, etc. And so it's just nothing to do with those things, because it's not a physical phenomenon. It's only a spiritual phenomenon. In fact, the Rav HaKodesh, others say, it only happened in Eretz Yisrael. Never existed in the Midbar. Much to your surprise, even though this was given over in the Midbar, there was never a case that Aaron HaKohen himself ever dealt with a Mitzorah, except for one. Who? Miriam.
No, Miriam.
Okay, so that's important. Miriam was afflicted with Mitzorah. Who else was afflicted? Paro was afflicted, and he bathed in the blood of whom? Of
The
Jewish
children.
babies, meaning that he thought it had to do with the humor, which is the human elements of the human body, according to ancient medicine, which was blood. And he thought that by having a blood transfusion, so to speak, it would heal the leprosy, that it was an affliction of the blood. That's why he bathed in blood. And of young blood. Why? Like today we speak about the stem cells. You know, that was the blood that was going to rejuvenate his life. It was going to give him hitchadshut. It was going to give him renewal. Because leprosy essentially is the symbol of death. Who else showed a symbol of death to Paro? Moshe Rabbeinu, who put his hand in his beged, right? Pulls it out and shows him a leprous hand, pulls it in. So what was that showing? Showing that's what's going to happen to Paro and Mitzrayim, that they will not live and survive. They will ultimately be like a makat bechorot. He shows him dam, he shows him a nachash. All these are symbols of death. The nachash is like the malach hamavet, the satan. Dam is of course dam. It's the source of life. And thirdly, Mitzorah. So Mitzorah, which is closely associated with dam. Okay, which is why Paro bathed in dam, and why the first makkah was dam. Because the first makkah was the arch makkah, was the ultimate makkah. Just like the month of Nissan is the arch Chodesh. It contains within it all of the spiritual essence of all of the months, all the Jewish months. Nissan does, yes. So that's what the Nesospa says. It's called Rishon Hu, right? It's called Chodesh Lachem, Rosh Chadashim. It says it's the head. It's the head, but the head encompasses all of the months. Okay, so it is the prime month. That's why it is called the king of the months, right? And therefore it is the month of kings. What does that mean? Whenever a Jewish king, for any king, is counted his years, we speak about the first year of his reign. Well, if he becomes king on an Adar, and we cross over into a new monarchical year, I think I just made up a word, Nissan, he's already in his second year of his monarchy. Because monarchy, the birthday of monarchy is Rosh Chodesh Nissan. It's the birthday of Am Yisrael. So let's understand that Soras, which we're going to go into the process of how the Mitzorah becomes from dead to alive. How does he get reborn? It's really a rebirthing process, as we will see. Death to life, right? Mortality to a taste of immortality. That's what you have to do. From Mitzrayim to Yisrael. From things that are divorced from Hashem to things that are connected to Hashem, which is who is the source of life. Okay. But before we get into Mitzorah, we're going to talk about, in general, this idea of Rosh Chodesh Nissan. Now, the Haggadah tells us that you might have thought that the entire Haggadah could have been recited from when? From the first day of Nisan. Yochel mi Rosh Chodesh. It says in Haggadah, why do you have to wait till the 15th of the month? Right? Let's just do the Haggadah. Right? The ladies will be very happy. Let's just get it done. We don't have to worry so much and have so much anxiety. We're just going to do it right away. Rosh Chodesh. And then we can enjoy the rest of the month. What's the thought even that you could perform the mitzvah of Haggadah? And then of course the Haggadah goes on to say, no. Bisman shematza mora munachim lifa necha. You have to do it when we have the Karban Pesach. The Karban Pesach is not going to come until the 14th, and that's when you have the mitzvah of Karban Pesach, and that's when you have to recite the Seder. Which means you would have thought that you're going to recite the Seder, sing Hallel, tell the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim to your children the first opportunity possible on Rosh Chodesh. Why? Because that is the real story. What do I mean by that? When a new month starts, you're in the month, right? What happens the first 15 days? So the moon gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Fine, but we already know there's a moon. If it grows, matov umayafeh, right? It gets better and better and better. It's like a baby. Once the baby is born, you know the baby's going to grow, but when's the real simcha?
On the bris milah for the boy, maybe?
I would say, when do you get the biggest mazel tov? Bris milah for the boy, sure. No, when the baby's born. When the baby's born. Even though we wait 30 days to make sure that the baby's viable. Why? Because 30 days is a month. It's that whole month, which is the birth. When is the birth finished? When the baby's 30 days old. Therefore, what do we do at the end of 30 days, on day 31? We do Pidyon Ha-Ben, right? Because the birthing month is over. The birthing month of Am Yisrael is Nisan. But the first day of the birth is going to be what? Rosh Chodesh. Even the idea of birth is connected to the head. Because the halachic definition of birth is crowning. When the head emerges. This is a big issue today because there's a lot of talk in America about abortion.
Right, about killing the baby when he comes
Right.
alive.
They wanted to say, one of these, enlightened democratic candidates, that to the Georgia, the state, the United States is passing a law that if you can detect a heartbeat, you can no longer do an abortion. And you know what her comment was? She said, "That's evil."
Who said it's evil?
the one who they touted to be vice president candidate, she's a black woman,
Oh,
and
that's,
she's a failed gubernatorial candidate. She said it's evil. It's evil to keep a child alive because they have a heartbeat. That's evil? Excuse me.
That makes sense.
It's a big battle. How late can you do an abortion? Some people have, some of the laws of abortion that are either proposed or on the books include that if the baby survives an abortion attempt, you can still kill it. It wasn't meant to survive the abortion attempt. Anyway, so the birth is a month-long process, but the actual birth moment is Rosh Chodesh Nissan. HaChodesh HaZeh Rosh Chadash. Okay? So I just want to look at, we're looking at some of the events as a prelude to understanding Mitzorah. Mitzorah is leprosy. In the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, it signifies death. Paro bathed in the blood of the Jewish
when
babies.
did he get this Mitzorah?
Right before this was right before Moshe comes.
Come
Right.
back?
And when Moshe comes,
When he
when Moshe is at the sneh told to go back to Mitzrayim, at that time, that was Paro, the last thing of what Paro was doing that really caused the Jewish people the utmost suffering was not only was he had thrown the babies into the Yaacov, right? That goes back 80 years, right? But that stopped, as we learned. When did that stop, throwing the babies into the Nile? The minute Moshe Rabbeinu hit the Nile, it stopped. Remember we learned about that? Because there was no more need, because they saw that the Messiah was drowned, they thought the Messiah of the Jews was drowned in the Nile, right? And so there's no need to throw all the babies over anymore. But now something happened again regarding the babies that Paro was talking.
There were babies that died, that's not real babies died.
Midrash says that they were, I only noticed they said that they were thrown into the Nile, I didn't say that they died. Midrash said that they were well, yeah. Well, look, if you look at the different sources, you'll see that they'll say that Makas Dam was because he turned the Nile red with the blood of the babies, right? But there are midrashim that the babies, I don't know how many of them, all of them, some of them, were miraculously survived.
By Shifra, a big Shifra for it, so.
They pulled them out and they secretly raised them in miraculous ways. So, Dam and Mitzorah are intimately connected, right? Because Paro bathed in the blood of the babies to alleviate his leprosy, or whatever you want to call it. And Miriam became a Mitzorah, right? And she was healed by Aaron. But according to Amraforshim, she was the only Mitzorah in the whole 40 years that they were in the desert, because essentially it's a spiritual affliction. What was the imperfection that Miriam had that caused her to have a spiritual sign? What did she do?
She went to Aaron and she said,
She spoke what?
Yes,
About Moshe Rabbeinu. What was the Lashon Hara?
that he really separated from his wife.
That he
because we're all
divorced his
being,
wife.
well, we have to,
Right, that he divorced his wife and he was not,
but
no longer considered himself a human being.
But
Like the Rambam says, Moshe Rabbeinu left the realm of human being and actually became a malach in his own lifetime, which is the only person, other than perhaps Eliyahu Hanavi, close by, and they're closely associated, who crossed over the line from human being, that stepped up from the human realm to the angelic realm.
But the real sin was that she didn't go to Moshe, because she thought, she
Spoken to
told
him.
her father, so she thought maybe she had, like a little bit,
So whatever this, on her level, it was Lashon Hara. Okay, so Saras, according to the Kliyakar, is associated with 3 primary spiritual problems. What are they? And the Kliyakar, there's many midrashim. The Gemara in Erechim, Daf Tetzayin, lists out many reasons why Saras, which is a signal of mortality or death. In fact, that's why the Kliyakar explains is that most of them are white, because as a person ages, right, they their skin, their hair color turns white and so on. It's a sign of, how shall I say, vigorous youth is not associated with gray, unfortunately, right? Except for certain people, I guess. And it's a sign of aging. And if it's a sign of aging, it means that one is showing his mortality. And saras are all white hairs. There's one gold hair, but basically it's a sign of moving towards the realm of whom? Death. Now, who else is associated, according to the Zohar, with leprosy? Going all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Who?
Adam.
Yeah, how?
Aisha has
The Nachash. Well, he spoke Lashon Hara about her, right? And therefore, he was damaged. Mankind was damaged by whom? The Nachash, who's the symbol of Lashon Hara. Why? Because he what?
He was the whole
Twisted.
thing, and Hashem didn't even, he just punished him.
Who did he say Lashon Hara about? He said Lashon Hara about Hashem. He said Hashem doesn't want you to eat from this tree. He tells Chava, because then you'll become like a God creating worlds. So the first Lashon Hara in the world was the Nachash speaking about Hashem Lashon Hara. And he's associated, Kabbalistically, is with Tsaras. Tsaras. And the skin of a human being changed as a result of the impact of the Nachash. What happened when they ate from the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra? Their skin went from being they were like translucent, full of light. Like if you imagine somebody who was just their shape, but emanated light, like Moshe Rabbeinu's face, right? When he came down the second time, that emanation of light was what they looked like, and it was corrupted by the Nachash, and we were covered with skin, and that skin, again, was like a skin of mortality. Because Adam and Chava at the beginning were immortal. They were what Moshe Rabbeinu became. They went beyond the realm of mortality, beyond the realm of regular skin and mortality, and became shining angelic beings, which is our future. That's everybody's future. That's what we're all going to be on that level, eventually. Yeah, that's what we're going to be like. We're going to be human, but we're going to be inhuman the way Adam and Chava were human. We will have survived the bite of the Nachash. Now, Chazal tell us that the Nachash represents Lashon Hara. Why? Because it bites without satisfaction. The reason for that is that a Nachash can eat anything. A Nachash, ki'ilu, eats the dirt off the ground. It doesn't lack for any food. So what's it going around biting people and killing people? Kacha. Because that's what a Nachash does. That's what a Nachash does. The Mishnah tells us in Maseches Bava Kama, it lists animals that are considered mortal threats to human beings. They are the Zev, the wolf, Dove, a bear, Ari, lion, the Bardalas, which is like a. Remember we learned about the jaguar that we said that was so dangerous that it attacks humans. Oz Kanomer, remember we learned about that? And the last one is the Nachash. If they're domesticated, according to Rabbi Eliezer, all of those animals, okay, are not considered to be prone to damage. Hence, if you own a pet Bardalas, a pet jaguar, as they say in England, they don't say jaguar, they say jaguar. They drive jaguars, they don't drive jaguars.
Or a dog, because a wolf and a dog.
A dog is the worst aspect of dog is, in fact, the Mishnah says, interesting you mention that, it says that a dog is less dangerous, although plenty dangerous. It says that two dogs, a shepherd should be able to drive away. It's machlokas in the Mishnah, whether they come from two different sides or they're coming at you from one direction. If you're fighting in one direction, a dog, you should be able to sustain yourself from two dogs, but from one wolf, even in one direction, if it's a time when wolves are being predatory on human beings, it says Zman Mishlachat Ze'evim, the Mishnah says, then you're an onus. You cannot prevent that Zev from eating your flock, eating one of your flock. It's just too difficult to overpower a Zev.
But doesn't dogs protect the sheep?
You're supposed to.
And
We're talking about the wild ones, the ones like
Oh.
they live in Ramat Shiloh there. Anyway, so let's go on. So what am I trying to say? That the Nachash is muad la'olam. Nachash is considered always dangerous, even according to Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah in Baba Kama, the very first parak, which lists the animals that are called b'nei tarbut, domesticated, that they're not muad, and therefore if they damage, it's a surprise. And the owner is only responsible to pay half damages. Just like an ox is not supposed to damage, and if it damages, until it damages 3 times, you don't pay full damage, because it's like, how are you even supposed to know about that? So, the bottom line is that Nachash is associated with Lashon Hara, because he's just a general mazik. He creates damage for no good reason, just because he likes to damage. It's just his nature to bite. Okay? And that's what can happen to a person who's imbued with the quality of Lashon Hara. They just speak Lashon Hara, just like an automatic, and they become mazikim. They become people who really, really hurt and damage other people just by their words. All right? Now, Nachash, Paro, Miriam. Okay? Those are the associated. And there were no other Mitzrayim in the 40 years in the desert. It only appears in Eretz Yisrael. Why? Why in Eretz Yisrael? Because Eretz Yisrael is where we get spiritually tested. Have you felt spiritually tested since you arrived in the land of Israel? Can you relate to that? Can you relate to the idea of Eretz Yisrael, Niknes b'Yisurim? What is Hashem doing to you? Hashem is refining us, smelting us into, removing the impurities that have crept into our neshamas. And if we can't do tshuva, Hashem will just burn them away. Okay? He'll just burn them away with Yisurim. So whether you do tshuva or not, you're going to get rid of them, because you came to Israel and you have to step up to the next level. What's the next level? Where Hashem is going to show us our negayim. This is what you have to work on. This is what you need to improve. Like it or not, you're here in Israel, you're in the palace of the king. In the palace of the king, you better behave. You're in the palterin of the melech. You're in the palace of the king. In the palace of the king, you conduct yourself differently. What's different? What do you do differently? You make sure that you do not go against the words of the king. Right? If you flagrantly, or if you flout the commandments of the king, which are Torah mitzvos, right? In Eretz Yisrael, that's a disgrace to the king. And therefore you're judged. And you may have to therefore have a punishment of some kind that gives you feedback that you're not honoring the palace of the king. This is where Galus comes in, this is where all those things come in. All right, now, this, so let's link the events that are happening now, the onset of Rosh Chodesh Nissan, which is the month of the Geula, and some of the events that we're talking about right now. Okay, first of all, I want you to look at the events we're talking about right now. I'm going to earmark them. What has happened to us? We never look to predict the precise date of the Geula. That's not our business. We don't know whether it's this year, next year, or in the year 6000. We know that in the year 6000 the party's over and something is going to transform. We're going to be transformed. Much like there's a difference between Friday and Shabbos, that's the difference. You're just going to be Shabbosdik. We're all going to be Shabbosdik. What does that mean? We'll find out. We have some ideas, but we'll all find out. Shabbos is a metaphor. We're not going to be worried about material preparations. We're not going to be worried about making a living. We're going to be celebrating. We're going to be in a spiritual state. We're going to go to shul. We're going to have kiddush. We're going to have friends. We're going to learn Torah. We're going to enjoy our families, right? And we have to be prepared for that. But when exactly? But we always look for simone geula, to encourage ourselves that we're on the right path and that we came here to Eretz Yisrael to be part of the geula, and the geula is happening. Let me repeat that. Why are we here? Why are we here? How many millions of Jews sit in Chutz La'aretz? How many millions of Jews right now? Give me a number. How many millions of Jews are not in Eretz Yisrael? You know we have 6.5+ million here. How many are in Chutz La'aretz right now? How many?
3, 4, 6, 7.
at least 7, perhaps 8, and perhaps as many as 9. If you get it depends what you consider a Jew, but 15 million Jews in the world, 14 million Jews in the world. Some of the low end estimations are 13 to 14. The higher estimations are in the realm of 15, not more. You know when there were most Jews in the planet during the modern era? The eve of the Holocaust. You know how many Jews there were in the world on the eve of the Holocaust? 18 million Jews. Which shows you that, and after, there were 12 million Jews. Somehow that number is more or less or more. Hashem added 6 million to take away 6 million. Do you understand? We went from 12 million to 18 million in the period between the year 1900 and 1939. In those 4 years, the population of the Jews in the world jumped by 6 million. It's true. A lot of them are in America already. Okay. And a lot was built in here in Eretz Yisrael. A lot. 20s was very big. 30s, very big. So, in any case, we are, okay, now take the Anglo Aliyah.
The what?
Anglo Aliyah. How many Anglo Jews are there in Israel today?
350,000.
Is that, and I think that's a very generous estimate. Do you have that, did you hear that somewhere? Did you read that somewhere?
I read something like that.
Okay, let's take that number for a second. 350,000, okay? What's the percentage of that against Jews in the world? Jews in the diaspora, excuse me.
Just Anglo you're talking about?
I'm talking about, well, obviously there are Jews. Let's talk about, let's do this more simply. How many Anglo Jews are there in the diaspora? Let's take England, Australia, Canada, America. How many Jews is that? Is that at least 5 million Jews? Maybe it's 7, what?
I think
You have
it's
6 in
7.
America, plus
It's
another,
over.
what, 7 million Jews? 6 million Jews? Minimum of 6 million. Okay, let's do the math. You ready? Here we go, my calculator. 7 million
Why are you just counting?
divided by 350,000 equals
1/5.
20%. What percent of Jews left Egypt? Thank you. I
Chamushim,
rest my case.
a fifth.
Chamushim Alu. Get it? 1/5 of all Anglo-speaking Jews. That's just Anglos. I'm not talking about the Jews in France. I'm not talking about the Jews in I don't know where, in Europe, and in South America, which there are.
Why you pointing out the Anglo? I don't understand.
It teaches us that just like in Mitzrayim, only 1 out of 5 came out.
Uh-huh.
Never came out.
4 out of 5 did not come out.
Right.
So we are here. We're part of the 20%. If that. And why? What are we here for? We're here to witness the Geula. Hashem put us here front and center. Doesn't mean it's going to be simple. But let's look for, but it's important for us who are here to look and be a part of the process of Geula and notice what's going on. So look, I just want to rattle off for you the events of this momentous onset of Chodesh Nissan 5779. What has happened in this past week of momentous importance to the Jewish people and to Israel? Go. Golan Heights was recognized by America. What else happened?
The return of the.
Well, there was a visit to Yerushalayim by the Vice President to the Kotel. There was also an announcement of the idea of sovereignty on where? On Yehuda and Shabbat for the first time. That anything was said like that by the sitting Prime Minister. What else? What else happened? Bereshit is going to land. Erev Shabbos Hagadol.
To the moon.
Do you know which day that is, by the way? Every day you read another carbon of another Nasi. Okay? You know whose day that is? Friday? Because it's going to be Friday. It'll be Thursday in America, it'll be Friday here. Ben Hashmashot. Right? Ephraim. Ephraim, who represents the kingdom of Israel, the northern tribes who went into Galus first. Okay? The lost 10 tribes. The lost 10 tribes. Okay, now, what else happened of incredible importance and significance? The return of the body of Zechariah Baumel. When was he buried? He was buried on Thursday, right? Erev Rosh, just about Erev Rosh Chodesh. Right before Rosh Chodesh. And how was he returned? He was returned by the Russians. Very, very important.
Russia.
So let me explain this, okay? You ready? We had in Parshas Shmini at the end the story of the 4 animals that have one kosher sign but not 2. Who remembers what they are?
The camel,
the
the camel, the
hyrax.
chazer, and,
Here.
And the hare. Very good. They're nevet. So it goes like this: the gamal, right? He chooses cut. Then you have the shafan, which is some sort of badger or hyrax. You see them, by the way, if you go down on hikes to the desert, you'll see them. They're like furry little, like, what do we call them? Groundhogs. You'll see them all around, like these little pudgy things.
what was the name you said? What did you-
They're called shafan. And then there's our nevet, which we'll assume is a rabbit for a moment, or whatever it is, a hare. And then you have the chazir. But he's in a different category. Why? Which simon does he have? He's opposite these guys. He has the split hooves.
Looks kosher.
He looks very kosher. The only problem is on the inside, there's no ma'ale gera. There's no rumination, and therefore it's not kosher. However, about that one, Chazal say he will eventually be kosher.
Yeah, at the time,
Yeah. Hmm?
so we'll be able to have bacon on
They
it.
claim this.
Yeah, they found this Barbarossa pig a few years ago, and they were arguing whether it's choose its cut or not. I remember the whole thing about that. Yeah, that's a good sign. The pig will become kosher, which means that we'll find the species. It will evolve, so to speak. I don't know how you understand it. It'll start to chew its cut. It comes to the word lachazor, which means it's going to go back to being tahor. It'll go back. Chazir, lachazir.
So
And
if
Chazal
I-
tells us another thing, that the word chazir is associated by Chazal with Esav, with Edom. Yichar Semeno, Chazir, Miyar is a reference to Edom, our current Christian Western world which dominates, right? America being the dominant force, and then secondarily Europe, and then Russia, correct? Those are all of Europe, Russia, and America constitute Edom. And they are really the world's greatest powers, right? Now, Israel's rising among those, ironically. But that's Edom. What is their job? Lahachzir hamelucha limekoma. They are the ones